Lake Ontario is experiencing probably its best Chinook salmon fishery it's seen in the last 30 years. They're proposing changes on the Ganaraska, and oh my goodness, no one cares that you caught 85 fish yesterday morning. This and more on the Love of Fishing podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Love of Fishing podcast. I'm your host, Lyle Gator, and today we've got a hot take, off-the-cuff version of the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've tuned into the podcast before, you'll know that I like to cover a lot of different fishing topics. Today, we're talking about something near and dear to my heart. That is the Lake Ontario salmon fishery. If you've checked out some of my salmon content in the past, you know that I like to talk about the science aspects as much as I can. I've been studying salmon for a long time, reading the research. I've been involved in the FMZ Council, and I just generally care a lot about the fishery. I'm a stakeholder in the sense that I'm a guide, and above all else, I'm someone who loves fishing. This has been an incredible year. There's no two ways about it. Wherever you go on the lake, fishing has been awesome. It's been sort of foolproof from a guiding perspective. The fish haven't seemed to move too much. We're seeing a lot of bait, a lot of nice fish. Now, there's a couple things I want to talk about here. I mentioned in the intro that it's the best fishing we've seen in 30 years. Numbers, incredible. I'm not sure if they're running a creel survey this year, but if they are, I would be very, very shocked if these numbers were not the highest that have ever been recorded on a creel survey. I'm very interested, though, to talk to somebody who has fished since the inception of the fishery back in, I believe, the 70s when we started stocking the Pacific salmon, Chinook and Coho, just to talk about the 80s. I know the 80s were a heyday. The fish were huge. They were plentiful. There's stories of guys fishing. You know, you set your lines in 20 feet of water and troll out in the spring, and, you know, a lot of times you wouldn't make it very far and you already had your limit. So, you know, we've seen great fishing on the lake before. My generation, I'm 28 years old. I had my birthday on Monday, July 22nd. I haven't been around that long. I got to remember that. Fishing is really good right now. On that, fish are a lot smaller these days than they have been in the past. And it seems to be a trend over the last few years where we're seeing these Chinook salmon in the big competitions. This year, it's Great Ontario Salmon Derby. These fish used to, and I say used to meaning 2012, when I first started to get into the fishery and really understand how it worked and how impressive it was, those fish, you couldn't make the board if you didn't have a 28 or 29 pounder. That was like just squeaking in. Most of the fish were 30 pounds. And now we're talking 12 years ago. So now we're seeing fish hit the board that are 24 pounds, 25 pounds. You might win the week with a 28 or a 29. There's only been a couple 30s so far. And I'm not bashing the fishery. I'm not saying, oh, it's declined. Oh, it's no fun. We got a heck of a fishery. But if you look at the numbers, we're certainly better at catching fish now than we've ever been. The technology's there. The product selection is incredible. So if you're a believer in color or action in terms of your lures, you got all the choices in the world. We got people doing custom colors. The tackle selection is unbelievable. So why are the fish smaller? This is where I'm going to segue to part 2, where a survey just came out. Fill out the survey if you fish the Ganny or if you care about the fishery, because what we need to understand here is there are 2 rivers that are the lifeblood of the Canadian side of Lake Ontario. We have to understand this. The north shore of Lake Ontario is where natural reproduction can happen. It doesn't happen down where I am in Niagara. Niagara River, fish may survive. I'm not going to say that they don't. In fact, I know that they survive. Or they could survive. They could survive in harbors. They could survive in Port Dalhousie. They could survive in Jordan. but the majority of these fish are going to survive in the North Shore environment where the water's cold, where they have the substrate, where they have the cover, the consistent water flow. Okay, this is where the fish are going to succeed in their spawning more often than not. So what we have here are two major rivers. We have the Credit River and we have the Ganaraska River. Our fisheries management has always understood the Chinook salmon fishery and managed it to be a put and take fishery, largely. We look at the bait fish numbers, we look at the numbers of fish that the United States stock in New York, and we come up with numbers that look at how many fish are we putting in so that we achieve a balance. Now this is great. I don't think that this is a bad thing, but what I think we're seeing is these fish are getting smaller and smaller year after year, and we do the bait fish surveys to determine if there's enough bait. And the last 2 years especially, the results are there's enough bait. Because we cut our stocking in the past, we were worried about bait fish numbers. Those days are over. We've brought our numbers back up. So if we believe that the bait's there, why are we not producing more 30-pound fish? These are the trophy fish, the tyes that people chase. It's someone like myself, a serious tournament angler. I want to go out and catch a 30. So why isn't this happening? Well, what I believe is happening, and other anglers and people interested in the science, they believe that more and more fish, more and more Chinook salmon, are naturally reproducing in rivers like the Ganaraska especially, the Rouge, up these North Shore creeks that have become cleaner and cleaner and more supportive of fish reproduction, whether it be because of the Atlantic salmon restoration programs, largely. They're succeeding. And what this does is over time, you create a Great Lakes strain of fish. Okay, so this is basic biology. Way back in the 70s, when we introduced these fish from the Pacific, from the West Coast, we brought them over. They had a genetic makeup. Now, as we know, Chinook salmon live 3 years. And they spawn. They pass on their genes and they create a new generation. When these fish do this, there's natural selection. So some fish are just better at reproducing than others. There's factors in the environment and in their genetics that predispose them to either being better or worse spawners. This is boiled down. Year over year, if this keeps happening, there will be a selection for a specific type of fish that is better at spawning in these rivers. I believe those are smaller fish. And that is why now, after years of not adding any new genetics to the system, we are getting a lot of smaller fish. It's not a bait fish thing. They're living the same amount of time, surrounded by the same amount of bait. It is a genetic thing. What are we going to do to change that? Well, on the topic of these great rivers, because they are great and they're amazing and they are the lifeblood of our Canadian side, because these fish are naturally reproducing. Some proposals have been made to create a fish sanctuary on the Ganaraska from the CNR Bridge to, some street. They're going to keep the fishway closed, but they're saying they want to close it to angling. Because right now you could fish there in that stretch right up until September 30th. So they want to close that. They want to make it a fish sanctuary, which I'm in support of. I think there's more harm than good that ever happens in that stretch. If you're any kind of an angler with any kind of skill, you don't need to fish the steps. You don't need your chum that bad. You don't need your eggs that bad. Come on, guys, give your head a shake. Catch them in the lake. Catch them in any other... Come to the Niagara. Tell you what, come to the Niagara. You learn how to fish a 40 gram. You read the seam and get your bobber down. You come fish the Niagara. You don't need to fish the steps. Anyways, that's an aside. But anyways, I think this is good. I think close it down. Let people enjoy watching the fish. I've been to the Ganny during the run. It's beautiful. It's amazing. You see how many fish, huge fish, are coming up that river. Let's protect them. Okay, but if you do this, we have to be really careful, because if you do this, and even if it's 2% of the fish get bonked by somebody with a net or a treble hook with a weight on it, and they fill their garbage bag and they take it home. Okay, is it 2%? Is it 5%? Is it 0.5%? I don't know. I'm sure there are numbers out there, but more and more fish are going to succeed. We have to understand how these rivers are functioning in terms of our genetics and our fish. We got to start clipping. Have to start clipping. We got to understand, how long are these fish living? Are they running as 2-year-olds? Are they running as 3-year-olds? What's going on here? Because our fishery's in decline in terms of trophy fish hunting. And I mean, as a guide, as a client, I want numbers. I get it. But our lake has the potential, and we've seen that potential for huge fish. Can we please try and understand how that comes to be? I'm someone who puts in fish every year. I put 60,000 in Port Dalhousie with the help of an amazing team here locally. It's a lot of work. I'm happy to see the fish enjoyed by everybody. I'm happy to protect them when they're vulnerable. But I would like a little bit of a different conversation to start in terms of how we understand these populations. So guys, leave a comment on this video. What do you think? And better yet, fill out the survey for the Ganaraska, because that's really our big one. That's our big river. And if you've never visited the Ganny, go check it out this fall. After big rain, early September, it will blow your mind. Seeing those fish up close like that, bring your kids, teach them the importance of conservation and the incredible migration that king salmon make in our lake. It's just incredible. On the topic of numbers, nobody cares. When the fishing is this good, nobody cares that you caught 85 fish. At least I don't think they should. It blows my mind how many people this year, I'm 82 for 95. Yeah, okay, you've got 8 rods out, and I know we're doing 10 bites an hour. It's incredible. It's fantastic. Great. Nobody cares. If you're a guide, this is the worst thing you can do for the longevity of your business. What you need to focus on is keeping your clients happy, which they will do. Believe me, if they're catching 85 fish, they're going to tell their friends. You do not need to tell social media for them. They will tell lots of people. And B, when they come back next time, and you as a captain or a guide are grinding to catch them 6 fish next trip, and they don't understand the nuances of fishing and of guiding and conditions and year, they're not going to appreciate it. They're not going to appreciate the hard work that you're doing to try and make them happy. So guys, let's be careful with this. We've got a spectacular year. I've seen it on the river. It comes and it goes. We have to be stewards of our fish, our fishery. I don't want to see so many meat haul shots of 12 kings on the deck just dead. No one can eat that much fish. That's the other thing. Guys, you don't need to kill a 5-person limit. 10 fish, which is a 2-person limit, that's enough for 8 people for a year. Unless you're eating fish every week, which, I mean, if you read the suggested guide, they say don't do that. I eat fish, but I'm not going to eat them every week. And I'm not going to eat big king salmon every week. So that's just driving me nuts right now. But guys, there's a lot of great things going on out there. If you are listening and you're not able to access a boat, fall's coming. It's going to be incredible. The fall runs somewhere. Hopefully it spreads across the lake, but somewhere it's going to be rocking. Get your glow spoons, get your Cleos, get your headlamp. Get your needle nose pliers, your long-handled pier net. Call your friends and get ready to cast your arms off until 2 in the morning. Because I'm going to. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait. Let me know your thoughts. Comment below. Share this on social media. What do you think? Am I cuckoo crazy here? Have I been out on the boat too long and caught too many fish and I'm just bitter? I don't know. No one cares that you caught 85 fish. Anyways, that's all I got. I wanted to share the news about the survey. Go check it out. Look up Ganaraska Fish Survey. They've got it up. I'm not sure how long it's going to be up there. Do some thinking. What do you think? Are these fish smaller? Is it genetics? Is it bait? We got to be careful. We're making our stream environment so good for these Atlantics. Don't even get me started on that. And now we're seeing the repercussions in our other fish, right? These fish can run. They can be successful in a spawn. There's more to it than meets the eye, and there's more to it than is being discussed. Thank you very much for listening to the Love of Fishing podcast. I'm your host, Lyle Gator, and it has been another great episode to share with you. If you like the podcast, please check us out on Spotify at the Love of Fishing podcast, and give this channel a subscribe if you are listening on YouTube. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and don't forget to get outside and go fishing. Peace.